What's up, y'all? You're now listening to the What Now podcast. I'm Dr. Spencer Dupre, owner of Empower Chiropractic.
And I am Dr. Zach Thompson, owner of Within Chiropractic. The purpose of this podcast is to document and share the experiences of two young business owners as we open our own brick and mortar chiropractic practices. Join along as we discuss all of our wins, our losses, insights, and the many, many lessons we learned.
As a disclaimer, none of this is ever intended to be medical, legal, or financial advice. Yo, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to another awesome episode. Hopefully awesome episode. It's going to be great. Of the What Now podcast. Me, Dr. Spencer Dupre, and my boy, Dr. Zach Thompson, back at it again with another episode. So what's up, Zach?
What it do, man? What it do? Fresh off Memorial Day weekend. I believe it's our first time having a 3-day weekend since we've opened a practice other than Christmas and Thanksgiving, but we still are baby business owners, but our practices were still very much in not even knowing how to crawl yet phases. So fresh off Memorial Day weekend, feeling good, loving now that we're on Zoom and consistent. Feel like we're in a good spot podcast wise. So super excited to dive into today's episode and discuss whatever comes to mind. As I'm sure you've learned, we don't have an agenda. We don't have PowerPoint. We don't have talking points. We let it rip from the dome and see where we go. So Spence, what's fresh on your mind? What have you learned or maybe integrated over the last 3 days that is fresh on the mind?
Yeah, well, I was kind of thinking about what we were talking about before we started recording is just kind of the process of like rest. And it's the first time that I've taken some time off besides Christmas, and I think I took one Friday off too. I don't know why. I think I took one Friday off for something that
you took Good Friday off.
Oh yeah. Okay. So so this is the first time that we've been off, I guess, since the holiday. And it's been good. And the concept of rest, see, because like Memorial Day is Monday, and so like that's a holiday, but I took off the Friday before so I could travel and go home and see my parents and my brothers. And was feeling kind of guilty for actually taking some time off. But man, was it nice. And this morning, man, was it hard to get up after sleeping in. We're both kind of chilled out today, and it's been good to kind of ease back into the action. But yeah, I learned a lot about the need for rest this weekend, like just being able to actually like unplug. I didn't bring the laptop. I didn't read a book. I didn't do anything. I literally the whole weekend, man, it was awesome. My parents live on like a bunch of land. They have chickens. We have a garden, and it's like
your brother's garden.
Yeah, my brother's garden and his
Garden
chickens.
Guru.
Shout out, Guru. Shout out, Guru. So just being able to like literally like walk around the yard, watch Nola, who is my dog, chase the chickens around and like just eat like farm fresh eggs and some like potatoes that were like literally grown in our yard, and like a bunch of other stuff this weekend, and just do nothing. It was awesome. It was super restful.
That was really cool.
And it made me actually more excited, I think, to come back to work, because like that's the end goal, is eventually to build something like that for myself, to be able to go to a place like that. And it made me excited for the future. And it also showed me kind of where the gap is between there and where I'm at now. And we have a lot of work to do, but also it gave me a lot of perspective, because I haven't been home since Christmas, when my practice was only 4 weeks old. It gave me a lot of perspective to show kind of how much things have grown and things have changed, and how much I've actually accomplished in the short amount of time. So a lot of gratitude for that. And it's been good.
That's all totally real and super awesome. And there is so much in those 2 sentences that you had just spoken, or not 2 sentences, those 2 minutes you had just spoken, for us, that we can really unpack. I know if you follow me on social media, you know that I talk about rest a lot because it's a lesson that's been really hard for me to learn. I'm very much a doer and Enneagram type 3 achiever. And so for me, I'm always looking to push the envelope and to succeed
Oh, yeah, I'm
and
getting
get
it.
to the next thing. Um,
Keep
and so for me, rest is a difficult topic because I always feel like I have the need um, to achieve. And so with you talking about going through gratitude and things like that, it was just something super, super important um, for me to also reflect on because I had a similar situation where my parents had just moved from Connecticut, and that is not a drive. There's no drive from Texas. I mean, you can drive, it's 25 hours, but I never really have had the ability over the last 8 or so years since I first moved to undergrad and then moved here to just bop on over to their place and have dinner or things like that. And so with them moving, they're still moving into their home, but they got their keys on Wednesday and Friday, or yeah, both Friday night and Saturday night, or no, excuse me, Friday and Sunday night. Myself and Morgan, my girlfriend, we both were able to bop on over there, have dinner with them, and it was super nice to go back over to your parents' house. And I think having that ability, I know is something not everyone has, but it's something I hadn't had in so long that was just super, super great for me. And so in that, I also had that reflection back into thinking about where I came from Christmas all the way up until this point, because unfortunately, I'm not a good enough Christian to take Good Friday off. All jokes aside, but I didn't take Good Friday off, so this was really our first time decompressing in that sense, and it was super restful, and had plenty of moments sitting out by the pool. I played golf on Sunday to really reflect back on, wow, like we've come so far in the last 5 or so months, and at the same time, we're nowhere close to where we want to be. But man, am I grateful to have been in this position where I could unplug on Monday and wake up this morning. Like Spencer said, it was super difficult to wake up, but wake up this morning knowing we had our afternoon shift fully booked and we're going to crush it this week versus this time last year, thinking back to when I was independent contracting in Dallas, I was trying to hustle all Memorial Day weekend. I was trying to bring in new patients. I was, constantly checking the schedule. Like, are we even going to hit like 30 patients this week? Are we going to accomplish our goals? Versus a whole year later, super relaxed, not still have some worry here or there, but not this crippling anxiety that, okay, if I put up my feet, it's going to be taken care of. And so that was a big reflection back on just a year to today.
Dude, when you were playing, did you go play golf with your dad?
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, because they just moved here. How did that round of golf feel? Do you feel like you deserved it? Like whenever you guys were playing, you're like, man, I deserve this.
That wasn't like initially like the deserving thought. I mean, I hadn't had the chance to play golf with my dad since 2020 because 2021 I tore my pec, and then all the craziness of 2022 trying to open up the business and everything. And that was for he and I, golf has always been a bonding experience, obviously. And so to me, I was more soaking up that type of thing. But
Yeah.
looking back on it, I mean, we were at a country club. Two of our practice members belonged to the country club. They brought us out, fully comped around. And it was like, wow, like this is pretty awesome. Like
Yeah.
we just got a free round of 18 in, and it's it was. I mean, yeah, it was just super super
The
cool.
fruit, yeah, fruits of your labor, man. Fruits of your
Mhm.
labor. I know. This weekend we because I'm from Louisiana, we boiled crawfish and dude, it was awesome, man. It was like the one thing I was looking so forward to it because my whole family was there. Like my mom, my brothers, my grandparents on both sides of my family, my aunt in Louisiana, I call it my nanny. Um, and her kids, and so like all my first cousins and my great grandma. The best time that I had, I got to sit next to my great grandma who's 91 now, and just talk to her about all the things, ask her questions about her life, and We're from Louisiana. I got to get my swamp pop in, which is my Zydeco, which is Cajun music, if you guys don't. And the best part of my whole weekend is when this one song came on, and my great grandma was talking about how she used to dance to that song as a kid all the time, and to see her dance and the smile on her face as it was playing and we were all there. It was awesome. That's probably something I'll never forget.
Mm-hmm.
Which was so cool. And just to be able to sit and say man, I've been working so hard, and this is just such a sweet moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels so deserving. It just makes all the tough long hours and all the late nights in the office so worth it all.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
I think a really the image I just got in my head too is when we're much, much older and we've been doing this for 25, 30, 40 years, we get to put our feet up as those old men in the recliner and really look out, almost like that Lion King moment where Mufasa is telling Simba, everything the sun touches is yours, right? From all the hard work. And not that we are even remotely close to that. I think we've both reiterated that time and time again. But in a sense, it was that type of moment for me over this weekend, being able to see, okay, the hard work is worth it. And by no means am I ready for the next vacation. I think we talked about that last week. I'm more excited now to put in more effort to recreate that over and over again. And so that's really what I'm looking forward to, is being able to put in a lot more time, because now I know I have the ability to rest. For me, that was always a big struggle. As I've mentioned, just a year ago, rest was stressful. I always felt like I had to be productive. If I wasn't accomplishing something, then there was no point in resting. But now I see the point of it. And I don't know why it took me so long. Obviously, comparing everything to strength training or training in general, you can't constantly be in a growth phase. You can't be in the gym 7 days a week and expect to see astronomical gains. There's a necessary day off or days off from the gym, and just as there are in business.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about actually that this morning today, because I back in the routine, gotta get up 5 a.m. back in the gym. They're we never left. And I was thinking about it today because I was like, man, I can really get after it today. But I was I just feel this need to really ease back in. So I did some cardio, sat in the sauna, did some mobility stuff, because didn't get to do a lot of that over the weekend, and put in 18 hours of driving over the weekend. So
right.
I was doing a lot of sitting. So I was like, man, let me kind of get my body back right. And anyway, I was thinking about Thurman Fleet's law of recuperation. It's in his Raise the Dawn book, talking about the natural law of recreation and recuperation, the social aspect of things, and which I'm am slowly learning that dude, you really need to have a social life with friends away from work, for you to actually stay sane in your life, which I'm excited for your birthday party this weekend.
I'm also kind of excited. I don't like birthdays, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, just dwelling on that, and just thinking about those kind of things today, and how necessary this weekend really was for everyone. And I feel there's a lot of momentum that's slowly building back up as we kind of charge back up for this next week. I don't know. Have you ever had the feeling in business where you're oh man, something big is coming? I feel growth coming. I feel a shift coming on. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think I felt that before we go there was something I wanted to mention. But
Sure.
You were talking about the social aspect and the need for recuperation. One thing that I think back to a lot that's helped me in my mindset of becoming okay with rest is Michael Jordan, if you read the book Relentless by Tim Grover, highly suggest it. Tim Grover was Michael Jordan's trainer, and they're insane in the mental space, just absolute grind it out. If you're anti-hustle culture, read the book because it'll test you a lot. But if you want to be great, definitely read it. But anyways, one thing about Michael was during playoff games and during their championship runs with the Bulls, they would fly to Phoenix to go play Charles Barkley, and Michael would fly early so that he could get in a round of 18 to play golf, or he would, they'd play until 11, 12 o'clock at night in this high intensity playoff round. Next morning, Michael's out there at 7 a.m. playing golf. And yes, it was because he really enjoyed it, and he obviously had somewhat of a gambling issue, but it was also his form of recuperation. And I always thought, oh, he's just doing too much. But I mean, the guy was the second greatest basketball player of all time after LeBron James. And so it's this dichotomy of like, okay, we need to be able to find how we can rest. Not all rest is sitting on the beach, and Spencer's shaking his head because he doesn't believe that LeBron's the GOAT, but that's a whole other conversation. Anyways, we don't need to constantly be on this push, and that was really a big lesson I learned, especially watching The Last Dance. But that's what I thought of.
Yeah. I can't believe you'd say that. Well, I can believe you say that because I know that you feel that that's the way I feel. The same way that people say that Batman is a good superhero just to get under my skin.
He is the best superhero.
But that's a different conversation.
But yeah, so in regards to feeling a boost in feeling there's this boost coming on in business or a boost coming on in life, I definitely have felt that. I was saying after we had done the Warrior Retreat, which was a men's retreat through the fraternity that Spencer and I were a part of in school and still are a part of today, I felt so much revelation, and even like post-marathon, because the Warrior Retreat was beginning of March, the marathon was April 1st, so there was a lot of pushing externally, not internally in the business, but I learned so much in the principles and the training for both of those events that I was then ready to receive. There was a lot of unlearning and then learning that had to occur, and then I had to be ready for it. And that's immediately when we saw this huge boom to where we're now seeing up to 120 patients a week. Starting in March, if I look back, I think we were at that 80-ish a week bubble. And each week we're just like, we're so close, we're knocking on the door. Finished the marathon. I think 2 or 3 weeks later, we just burst through, and we haven't looked back since. And it's because I've been feeling that surge coming on, and really feeling into that momentum, and not just waiting for it, but continuing to capture the momentum in those little things that
I think that's
daily.
huge.
Yeah. So that to me has also been a hard lesson to learn too, is how to utilize momentum and not just wait for it. You can't wait for momentum. I do feel like it's something created. And like you had mentioned, getting back in the routine, getting back in the gym, even though you didn't go balls to the wall like some crazy Marcus Philly workout, you still put in the daily things you have been doing to build your business by getting up at 5 a.m. It was the same thing for me. Like I did a 30-minute run, nothing crazy, but it was still the motion, right? Just as how, people come in on wellness, they're coming in once a week, every other week. It's to continue applying that motion into the spine. It's the same thing with your business, continuing to apply that motion in your daily life that helps to sharpen your mind.
Yeah, let's talk about capturing momentum and building momentum a little bit, because I feel like a lot of things that go with rest is also sort of like kind of hand in hand with momentum. And I feel like a lot of people kill their momentum by saying like, oh, I deserve this rest. Right. I think that's huge, man. It's like Matt and I were talking about that. Matt Morris, who Pinnacle Chiropractic in Sarasota. We had him on for an episode. We're gonna try to dig that out of the archives for you guys and basically try to get the formatting and stuff. That was kind of the last straw for us to switch over to this Zoom recording format. Anyway, Matt has become my business coach recently, made some transitions in the business, and now I've been working with Dr. Matt Morris. He's in the fraternity. We're like in total alignment. He is basically 5 years ahead of me, and is light years ahead of where I would think that you could get in 5 years.
I think he's 8.
5 years as a pediatric chiropractor, 8 years in private practice.
Right.
But he basically went through the same evolution as Tony Ebel, where he was doing this one thing, kind of just trying to get by, and then it was like, I'm gonna make this switch, I'm gonna go all in, burn the boats, and then now he's crushing it, like killing it. Anyway, Matt and I were talking about the concept of momentum because I kept telling him like, what is next? What is next? What is next? Like how, like, what do I do next? How do I catch this growth? Because I like feel this thing. Like I feel like like this wave coming behind me. Like it's like there's something that's knocking on the door. I don't want to lose it. And he said, well, now is the time for you to like go harder and like, and I was like, I got to make a hire right now because if this momentum comes and I don't have the bandwidth to catch it all, and I don't have the team to ride this wave like with me, then it's going to flatten out a lot, like a lot sooner than I thought. And so I was like, man, I got to hire now. And so I made a hire. But he was talking about how a lot of the things that he sees with young chiropractors, when you get to that point of like I'm at my max of like my capacity, like I've reached my bandwidth, or I'm getting close to my bandwidth, then people don't hire and they say like, oh, I'm just going to expand my capacity. Well, like instead of doing that, what you do is you just lower your quality of service, and then you kill all of your momentum by trying to hold everything yourself. It's like, yeah. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about momentum and like maybe when is the right time for rest, and what are some things that you're doing to create momentum and sustain momentum.
Those are great questions. I think for one, it's definitely having a mentor or a guide that is not too far ahead of you that can help when you talk to them. They can help gauge, okay, you're at about this point. This is when I had wished, or this is when I should have. And really hearing them say that I should have done this, because that's what a mentor is for, is to teach you things that took them maybe 5 years to learn, that you then learn in 3 months of working with them, and that can then excel you where you don't have to go through those 5 years. But on the topic of momentum, I was listening to a Nick Bear podcast, and I found this really interesting, where BPN, Bear Performance Nutrition, when he first started it, I think he said his first 3 years. Now, this is a super, super successful supplement company now, based out of Austin. But the first 3 years, they only made $20,000 each year, which is kind of crazy to think about. Like he's doing that time and time again. And then all of a sudden, after year 3, huge growth, right? And I think we, right now, as younger business owners, we look at momentum as this 3-4 week, maybe 3 month time period, but you got to be constantly building. And momentum is not a thing to that you just build overnight, as we talk about so often in this podcast. It's not an overnight thing. You really have to start doing daily routines and daily. I'm not a routine guy, so I don't want to say routines, but things you do on a daily basis that really allow you to stay in the zone. And for me, a lot of that
actionable items.
Yeah, for me, that's being in the gym 4 to 5 times a week. That is coming into the office. Obviously, I'm not a big like take Fridays off kind of guy, but coming in the office 5 days a week, showing up to networking meetings when I can, and even sometimes if I am a little burnt or I'm a little toast and it's a 6 p.m. happy hour type thing, that's when I lean in a little bit more. Where I think most people would back off. That's where I'm going to lean in and really, okay, I'm going to dig deep. I'm not going to bring in new patients. I'm simply doing it as an act to continue momentum. I've been doing this for 6 weeks. I've seen growth through it. I'm not going to stop just because I'm tired today. To me, if I'm tired, that's because I'm staying up too late watching a show or sports or TikTok or whatever. There's no reason why I can't get home at 7:30, be in bed by 9:30, and wake up the next day at 5:30 in the morning and be ready to go. So really allowing myself to do things that, one, aren't overly exhaustive. Reading the Bible is not exhaustive. Reading my daily devotionals, not exhaustive. Going to the gym could be exhaustive, I guess, but still building that capacity to do more in the gym. And then there's so many little things too, but just continue to do those little things that I can easily stop doing, but I know would wreck my momentum, like not
Yep.
showing up to a networking. Like to me, it's weird, right? So today's Tuesday, the day after Memorial Day. My 9 a.m. networking that I typically go to was canceled, which makes sense, right? There's a lot of people that are catching up after a long weekend. But then, so I 9 a.m. I go to a power hour, which is like a big mastermind, which is pretty awesome. And then 11, right after this podcast, I go to my BNI. Both of those were canceled. And so today I'm like, what do I do with my time? And I think for some people, they'd be like, oh, I'm just going to rest. And I won't lie, I slept in an extra hour and a half. I think I woke up at 6:45, 7 this morning. But I'm not going to take, that 11:15 to 1:30 that's typically for BNI and just like put my feet up. And there are so many things that I had that I typically don't have the chance to get done that I can now get done. And so I'm gonna dive in a little bit more versus, okay, I have this free time to go for a walk or go hang out with Morgan's dog or something like that. I'm gonna do a lot of the things I typically can't get done.
Dude, opportunity, right? And yeah, you touched on something about how like, momentum is built like through your daily things, but it's not something that you see the results of in 2, 3, 4 weeks. And that's something that Hormozy talks about a lot, is like expanding your time horizon, right? Like what is your time horizon? Doing the daily actions for what's down the road in 10 years, what's down the road in whatever. And today I was listening to the last like 75 hard thing with that guy Nicholas on Andy Frisella, and they were talking about momentum and how 75 hard, like you don't get a cheat day, right? And it's like because like everybody like lives for this cheat day in like the traditional dieting, like, oh, I'm gonna diet for 6 days, and then you kill all of your momentum with a cheat day. And it's like, dude, it's like you only went 6 days, right? And you're like living for this cheat day, and you're living for this next thing instead of the actions and the actionable items on your day-to-day list. Those are your goals, not actually the thing that's down the road. Your vision, your dream outcome, your thing down the road, that's your vision, right? That's your dream, right? You're chasing your dreams, but your goals are the things that get you there. Right. Like the finish line is the end of the race, but really every single step that you take, your goal is not to fall. Right. And if you do, you just get up. Right. Your goal is to take one step forward every single time. And that's how you build momentum. Right. An object in motion stays in motion. And so, and an object at rest will stay in rest. That's why it's so hard for us to regain this momentum, right? Because like, dude, when we're going and we're churning, it's easy, dude. Like every single day, like clockwork, right? But you break that cycle, dude. I mean, like that was 4 days, and I'm like, oh my god, it felt like a month. And so like really like these little steps every single day is the thing that's going to get you down toward your end goals. But if all you're doing is trying to say like, well, when I get this, or when I get that, or when I'm ready, or when I'm ready for this, it's like you're never going to get there because you're not taking the little steps, right? You're trying to jump so far ahead, but you have to say like, all right, what is the first thing that I have to do? And that's what builds momentum, is doing these tiny little bitty things every single day. Yeah, which is why like when Logan, who is our practice coordinator, chiropractic advocate, whatever you want to call him, Logan, she works with me. She's my partner in crime now. Every day whenever she comes, yeah, my CA. Whenever she comes in, every day we say, all right, what's on our list? And by our list, we mean the power list that Andy Frisella had. Give us 5 things that we can control, that says like the only thing standing in the way of us, the only thing standing in the way of this getting done is us. That's our power list. We're going to do 5 things. And if we can crush these 5 things, all we got to do is get them done before the end of the day. But if we can get 5 actionable things that are like independently feasible for us, if we could do those 5 things, like post on Instagram, right? That creates momentum. Use people's names when they walk in instead of just saying hi. Say, hi, Zach. That's big, right? Answer phone calls within the first ring, or within 2 rings. That's another one. Not get caught in super long conversations with people. Chart all of the God, that's my downfall, is charting. But like those kind of things, those are actionable things that we can control, and we just chalk up a W every single day. Last week, W's across the board. Had an awesome week. And you know what happened? Practice grew 10%. right?
Yep.
So these are like just different ways to kill momentum, right? And if one day we come in, we're like, hey, actually, we're just going to kind of take it easy today. We're not going to have a list. It's like, dude, well, like we just crushed our whole last week's momentum.
Yeah.
And a week is not that long of a time, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm training MMA for a week, I'm not going to call myself Conor. I'm not going to go call out Conor McGregor. Well, I might call it Conor McGregor because he gets dusted now, but I'm not going to go call out Dustin Poirier because he's the GOAT. And I'm not going to go call out somebody and call myself a fighter, right?
Yeah.
Dude, it's been
Right.
doing it a week. You haven't built the credibility. You haven't done anything yet. But
Yeah.
yet we feel like, oh, I worked 5 days this week. I'm going to take a short week next week. Dude, you don't deserve that. Keep going.
Yeah. And it's not even like a deserve. It's not like you deserve, especially in a service industry. Like we show up to serve, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it could be almost ignorant to be like, oh, I worked so hard for 5 days. I need to take this one day off. Where I know in our practice there are people that can only come in on Tuesdays or on Fridays, and it's like, okay, like I don't want to be in that bind forever. That's why you hire associates, so that if I need to take off a Friday, they can potentially work, and if they need to take off a Friday, I can work, type of thing. But one thing I did want to mention, I think I'd mentioned either last week or the week before, I had just started doing a macro counting diet through a local business down the road, and it's been going great. I had my 2-week check-in after being in a pretty intense caloric deficit, and I stayed in my lean muscle mass, which is 100 pounds of lean muscle mass, but I lost 5 pounds of pure body fat. And I can easily be like, oh, that was great, like cheat meal time. And I'm not going to. That's not the goal. I'm not 2 weeks in and being like, okay, this is done. Like I'm leaning in a little bit more now. Right. So I'm gonna go full 12 weeks. I'm gonna see this cut all the way through, because I've noticed in myself when it comes to dieting and those types of things, I can be very explosive. That's not the right word. I can be self-destructing in my dieting, because I'll get so far along and be like, oh, I'm good. Like I can go back to my old eating habits or my old relationship to food, which is honestly not great. And it's because I tell myself, oh, you deserve like 2 or 3 days. But just as we found through this 4-day rest, it can get really hard to get back onto those daily momentum. So, through these 3 days, I think I had some chips last night at dinner, but through the 3-day weekend, I didn't veer too far off the diet. And today it was right back on it. It was eggs, it was everything, and we're just going to stay along the macro counting. And that is the goal for the next 10 weeks, is to continue even through. I have my birthday this weekend. Morgan has her birthday at the end of this month. There's 4th of July. There's all these different things. Still continuing on that path, and not allowing 1 or 2 days to come into my mindset and be like, oh, well, you messed up this day. Just, call it. You're not going to get back on track. Where it's like, if I can do these daily things, right? Just like how we were talking about, like reading the Bible or answering the phone on the first or second ring. If I can do these little things daily, it's much easier to get back on track, and I get back on track much faster. And I think that's the big thing about these little habits, and about learning and I don't know that much about momentum, but learning and seeing how it works, in the sense that, okay, if we can get back to doing the things we have set in stone that are really successful for us, then we're good to go. And that's the power of little tasks, of little objections that you can measure to really make sure you're doing the right things.
Yeah. Whenever like we're talking about this conversation about like the relationship between momentum and rest, and what kind of comes into my head is NASCAR. I grew up in a NASCAR family. My grandparents on my stepdad's side were huge NASCAR fans, and the like the thing that makes like a good driver in NASCAR, like the people who win a lot of races, one, they have a team behind them, but two, they strategically plan their stops, and they strategically plan like the brakes that they use to like maintenance and recover and recuperate. That is like fill the car with gas and change tires and all those kind of things. And the people who have the most strategically planned brakes always do the best, because like when everybody else burns out, they can come ahead, and when everybody else is like on their last end, they're like, oh yeah, I'm fresh in the game. And so since you just ran a marathon, I talked to a lot of people. I haven't run a marathon personally, but I actually do take care of quite a few people over the course of the past couple of years who like are like long distance runners, and we talk about like what are you doing for like recovery, like so planning like maintenance stops in their training. But I know there's a lot of planning that goes into like, what am I feeding myself in the race? When am I going to stop for water? Am I going to pee or whatever like that? So talk to the people and talk to me about your any sort of strategy that you had in regards to your marathon and your experience with that. And
For sure. There's a lot there too. Before I go there, you were talking about NASCAR, and I don't watch a lot of NASCAR being from Connecticut, but I am a big fan of at least the first Cars movie. And Lightning McQueen shows us that you can go the entire time or think you can go the entire time and not need a pit stop. And then ignorance comes in. And what happens to Lightning McQueen? His car crashes and burns, right?
he is the car.
He doesn't go into, well, he Lightning McQueen does not finish the race because he didn't take that pit stop, right?
Yep.
He wanted to push through, and I think that's a valuable lesson. So shout out Pixar for that one. But in regards to the marathon, I was a knucklehead. I had two 9-ounce water bottles attached to my hip. They both had LMNT, great electrolyte supplement. And I thought that 18 ounces of water was plenty for at least the first 12 miles.
Jeez.
And so 12 miles for me took about 2 hours. So I ran for 2 hours, only consuming 18 ounces of water. And I would see these people from the very beginning. Like, they had rest stops or water stops every, I think, mile or like mile and a quarter. Like, it was quick. And these people in the very beginning are grabbing water. I'm like, y'all need water already? Like, why are you doing this? And I'm like, I'm just going to pass them, keep going, and not going to stop for water. And so I don't stop for water for the first 12 miles. Well, guess what? Why did I stop for water? It's because I already felt my legs cramping. I already started feeling dehydrated. I never stopped to go to the bathroom. So I ran for 5+ hours, never going to the bathroom. And that's on my ignorance to think, oh, I'm good. I'm 26. I'm young. And looking back on it, I'm like, why? I know so much about the human body, all of this. Like, I studied training. Here I am, not stopping to get water, like a basic necessity of water. And it really affected me. Come mile 18, literally in this marathon, mile 18, you see the mile marker. And then as you look at the mile marker, you look up to the road, and it's a Texas hill. I don't want to call it like a steep hill, but a hill. And I'm like, I'm breaking down. And I was like probably a minute, 2 minutes ahead of the 5-hour guy. And I was like, oh, I'm going to break sub 5 hours, which was my goal other than finish. And then cramps in both quads. 5-hour pace guy blows right past me, and I'm just like, I just hope I finish at this point. And it was a beatdown. But having those strategic stops, even if I didn't stop at every single one, still stopping every other just to refuel and really replenish my body would have gone so much further than just trying to push through and, David Goggins it on pure grit. And I'm sure David Goggins stops at every water stop too.
Yeah, the lesson that I learned from that is whenever you said, oh, I'm 26, I'm young, I can do this and everything. And I think that is a big mistake that I can see us and other young business owners making, saying like, oh, I'm in a small practice. Oh, I have a small practice. I don't see a lot of people or whatever. I'm going to just keep pushing through. I'm young. I will keep going. We're small. And when I get there, then I'll do X, Y, and Z. When I get there, I think that's like the soundtrack. Like chiropractors should, and like chiropractic students all the way to like seasoned veterans, I think we could all get "when I get there" tattooed on their forearm because like we think like in try one, it's like, when I'm good enough, I'll go on a mission trip. When I get there, I'll start going to seminars. When I get there, I'll think about opening a practice. I'm going to associate for a little bit. And then when I get there, then I'll think about opening my own practice. It's like, dude, like you're
When I
never,
when I get to clinic, I'll start working on my adjusting or
dude, facts, or like,
yeah.
yeah, anything like that, right? And then like when we're in business, like, dude, I was working 2 jobs, and for the longest time I told myself like, oh well, when my practice gets there, then I'll quit the second job. Dude, like you get there when you decide that you're there. You get to where you want to be when you decide that you believe in yourself enough to actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yep.
that's just straight up it.
That was a
And
huge conversation I had with Morgan's dad. We were on a training run together. He's training for a full Ironman in November, and he came along for half of my 14 miler during training. And I had mentioned to him how initially, or at least in the first 8 weeks of training, I had immediate thoughts of this was terrible timing. I just opened a practice. This is one of the worst times for me to try to train and run for a marathon. I'm only 3 months into a business. Here I am just unloading so much energy every Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday to get these miles in. And I was telling him all this, and he was like, Zach, like, you should be almost ecstatic that you did take this time to run the marathon, because if that was your mindset of, well, when I have enough time, I'll do that, then you're never going to do the marathon. So by taking that action and signing up for it and completing it, you really did yourself a huge favor in learning early on that there's never going to be perfect timing, no matter what type of situation is going on. And you hear all the time of, well, it's just not the right time. It's not the right time. It's not the right time. Well, when is it going to be the right time? There is no right time. And I mean, yeah, it was, once I heard that and then completing it and then looking at like how life can unfold so quickly. And I mean, I have no more time than I do right now. So yeah, of course it was great. Perfect timing. And so super grateful for that lesson. And I think it's one that we can all walk away with.
yeah, I mean, that's what Andy was talking about that I was listening to today with the 75 hard thing. He said the minute that you say like I'm going to try to do 75 hard, you lose. The minute that you say it, like if you don't commit being like I'm all in, burn all the boats, everything is gone, there's no way back. That's only then is when you complete it, because that's what doing hard stuff is. Like, oh, like I'm going to try to do this or do that. You're never good. It doesn't matter what you do. It literally doesn't matter what you do, whether it's like, oh, I'm gonna try to cook this meal, right? Like until you're like, oh, I'm all in on this recipe, then like it's not gonna come out right, right? Oh, I'm gonna try to lose some weight. Like until you go all in on the diet and all in on your fitness, like you're never gonna do that. And it's no different than with your practice. Like until you say like, oh, I'm 100% committed into this, like into growing the practice, being my own like owning my own practice. Until you're 100% in, it's never gonna work.
Yeah.
It's never going to work. I have that conversation a lot with people that call me and they'd be like, how did you know when you were ready to open up your own practice? It's like, I've always been ready. I just had to choose when to start. And they're like, oh, well, like I'm working at like, literally I'm working at this job until I feel like I'm ready. And it's like, okay, well then what's your marker for when you're ready? That's always the question I ask. Like, what's your goal? What's your end goal? And like, because one is owning your own practice right for you. So what's your end goal for your life? What's your vision for your practice? What's your why behind it? Like, do you have something that drives you forward that's bigger than yourself? Because if you don't, then like, if you're like, oh, I just want to make money and I don't want to be told what to do, then like, you probably aren't going to make it. It's not big enough why.
No.
Or like, oh, I think it would be fun to do that. If you don't have like an excess surplus of capital, then like, it's probably not going to be fun. Let's be real. And even if you do, it's probably still not going to be fun. For a lot of things, even though practice is so rewarding, I wouldn't say that it's like it's not like, I don't know, it's not playing laser tag at the park or something like that. It's like it's work. It's not like just like, ooh, like fun, just not Chuck E. Cheese anyway. So that's what I ask people. I say like, okay, well, what's your vision for that? And then it's like, okay, well, when are you ready? And they're like, oh, well, when I'm ready, when I feel like I'm ready. It's like, okay, well, put a number to when you're ready. And the minute that you hit that number, you have to be gone.
Yeah.
The minute that you hit that number, it has to be gone. Like, right. Like,
well, I mean, that too is a big, I know for me, a big thing that's helped in our report of findings that we've utilized in our J2 process is when we're going over frequency of care and really the timeline of 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, however long, is pinpointing. You can't say for certain, you obviously can't guarantee, when people's pain will go away, but, for someone with neck pain, typically in a chiropractic office, they're no longer experiencing neck pain within those first 2 weeks of care, right? And
Yep.
so I make that known to them throughout that time because I'm giving them a pinpoint or objective measure to when they of high expectations, right? And then for some people, it's gone in the second visit. For others, it could be a month, but around that 2 week time period is when most people experience that. And so it really allows them to start to have it in their head, because I'll have conversations with people all the time. I'm like, what's your goal? Like, why do you want to get out? Why do you no longer want to have low back pain? And they're like, well, I just want to get back in the gym, right? Which makes sense. I've had low back pain. I couldn't be in the gym. And it was very much a when I no longer have low back pain, I'll get back in. But you have to have those conversations with practice members because just like Spencer was talking about, when you're ready, you have to do it. And so I hold my practice members very accountable when they tell me, I'm no longer suffering low back pain. I'm like, okay, great. Like when are you getting back in the gym? When are you starting that running
Yep.
program? When are you going to start playing with your kids the way you want to, right? And it's having those tough conversations with them, but you can have them with yourself too. And having those objective measures just in that regard, even though it is technically subjective, but having those objective measures pinpointed out and allowing people to see a bigger vision than just I'm here to get out of pain really allows for goal-oriented practice. And for me, that's been huge in setting those expectations.
Yes, doing that is huge, and the subjective part is just as important as the objective part, because the subjective part is the thing that people care about. The objective part is the thing that lets people know that it's possible.
I've had, right? I think I've had 4 or 5. I like to see back pain, Bob, but there have been times where people, at least from my palpation, from my functional test that I do in the office, they shouldn't be having pain, right? But they're still telling me, it's typically men that feel they need to have pain for their entire life. But we'll go in, and after 12 visits, we take our first rescan with the CLA scans. And I'll send them a video. They'll watch the video, and the scans are typically way better. There's typically only mild tension left or moderate, but there's never the severe tension that we had been seeing in the initial scan. And it is almost without a doubt, if we see those objective findings, we send out the video, their next visit, they come in and they're like, I feel great. Like, I don't really have this back pain. What happened? It wasn't that adjustment on that 12th visit. It was now they have seen the objective results actually match what their body is showing them. And now in their mind, they can start to feel better. So, the mind, one, is amazing. This is an amazing thing, but two, it definitely helps in that regard.
Yeah, if you guys are listening to if you guys are listening to this and you're one of the zonies at school, I was the big proponent of concept therapy and zone technique in chiropractic school. And I went all in on that. And it's basically like you just help people believe that their body works the way that they should. And then when the mental game, the thing that controls your physical structure, changes, that's whenever you start to see physical results. And that is true in a sense, but the actionable items, doing actual things, is what gets you there. And having objective measurements is what gets there, right? Like, I can believe that I want to lose, that I believe that my natural body weight is 195 pounds. Right now I'm sitting at 215. I can believe 195 as much as I want, but if I'm not actionably eating right and I don't get on the scale and see that number, then it's not true. Right? It doesn't matter how much I believe. Dude, I can wish away the pounds as much as I want. I can wish a six-pack into my body, but if I don't take the actionable steps and know that I have an actual goal to get there, then the concept is false.
Right. And if you're thinking too, oh, well, that's, I can just manifest my way to anything. I'll just drop the most spiritually sound human being, well, not human being, but spiritually sound thing that has ever been on the planet, Jesus Christ. There's a reason he came back from the forest. He couldn't sit there for 40 days and fast and pray salvation over the entire world. He had to leave his prayer and his fasting and go take actionable steps. He had to find his 12 disciples. He had to go to all these different places and spread the word, spread the gospel. And obviously his act on the cross, but it took actionable steps. It wasn't this just sit there and hum your way to everything you want.
Yes. I feel like, okay, so like, this goes in the concept of momentum, right? Like manifestation is not just believing the fact, well, manifestation is the fact that you believe that something is true and will happen. But the way that things actually come to fruition is whenever you believe it so much that you actually are able to see a clear path from where you're at to where you want to be. That's like when you're saying like, oh, I'm going to manifest this happening into my life, it's because that you understand the pathway from where you're at to your vision so well that you've thought about it so much that the steps to get there are obvious. And Matt and I were talking about that this last week with the 10x principle, like 10xing your vision, which is actually just what we talked about in the same podcast that week, is growing your vision and making it so big that there's only one route to actually get there. And then what you do is you just reverse engineer that, right? Like, dude, if I want to drive this $500,000 truck, well, what do I have to do? Well, I probably have to make well more than $500,000 to be able to get there, right?
Right.
I'll probably have to be able to like, all right, well, I got to figure out what the payments are, and I got to do this, right? So, dude, if you want a practice that's $1 million practice, it's like, all right, well, what does $1 million practice? You don't just like own your way into $1 million practice. You don't just like you don't just in the vibration into $1 million practice. You see the $1 million practice, you embody the $1 million practice, you believe that you can get there, you get the information that you need to get there to do that, and then you track your progress objectively to get there. If you're saying like, oh, dude, I believe I'm gonna have $1 million practice, and you're making $3,000 a month, like, dude, sorry, so I believe you can have $1 million practice too, but what are you doing about it?
Yep.
Right.
And there has to be steps. And, going back to what we talked about at the beginning, it's the daily things that can either destroy you or extremely benefit you. And finding those 3 to 4 things that don't take up a lot of time. I'm in big agreement with Hormozy. Like a 10, 12 step morning routine is laughable. It shouldn't take that many steps to get to work. But having 3 or 4 things, whether it's reading your Bible or if you have a book that you enjoy reading, or sitting in meditation for 10 minutes, whatever it is that helps you do little things. Like for me, making my bed is one of them, but taking those steps day by day to get to that point is what's so important about creating that momentum, and something I know most people would agree with that have had some level of success one way or the other. But this was super awesome. I think that I'm happy for our listeners that I have BNI every Tuesday, because I'm sure you and I could talk for probably 3 more hours, but we won't pull a Joe Rogan and just go. If you could leave the listeners with one tangible item before we wrap this thing up, what is one thing from this entire episode that you're like, if you could take this away, it would be worth your time?
Start doing the power list. This is the easiest thing to do. It's how you create your momentum. And then from your power list, you do your actionable items every single day that you like. For me right now, I do them every single day that I go to work. I try to get them in every day whenever I'm not doing that, but then that makes me feel like I have to work. So I'm working through that. But dude, start doing the power list because that will help you keep your momentum from week to week. You can see what you did last week, what you got to do this week, because if you did it last week, don't have to do it again unless it's like a repeatable thing. And then like literally, like for me, schedule a like block off time off was part of the power list at one point. Like block off days off for Q2 or for Q3. Like that was an actionable thing for me to do.
Yeah.
So make sure you're doing that. And it honestly is the easiest thing to do. Episode 16 on Real AF, Andy Frisella, he talks about all that stuff. He'll explain it all. I'm not going to try to take credit for Andy's idea. It's his thing. But I listened to that episode. That's it. That's what I would start doing.
Yeah.
And that's going to help you build momentum. It's going to help you be able to rest for your time off and actually enjoy it. It's going to make you stay productive while you're taking time off. And it's going to help you get to your visions and dreams a lot more, because if you're taking too much time off, then you're never going to get to your vision. But if you take no time off, you're going to burn out, and then you'll be like trying to edge your tongue across the finish line like Lightning McQueen. And I feel like that is pretty much the summary of what we talked about.
Yep. And watch Cars so that you understand the Lightning McQueen reference would be.
Dude, Cars is a good movie.
Second actionable item. But no, Spence, this has been great. I mean, again, this was an awesome episode. Thank you for listening. If you do have any shout outs, any questions, or any topics that you would like Spencer and I to discuss in the coming weeks, shoot us a DM or text us if you somehow have our phone number. But we look forward to continuing our discussions on everything we learned in our initial years of business, and hoping to shed light on the large aspect of what is owning your own business, especially from a chiropractic lens. So thank you for listening. And as always, look forward to seeing y'all next week.
Peace.